Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just to introduce myself, my name's Ed Pegram from Raleigh, UK, a name synonymous with bicycles in the UK. I'm going to take a bit of time to present some of the work that we've done across cargo with local authorities, businesses, different organisations on the introduction of cargo bikes and the benefits of those, and share some stats as well. I'll briefly touch on electric bikes as well. I appreciate this workshop is totally about cargo bikes, but we've had some really interesting feedback from a pilot that we've done in the West Country. And it was noted earlier that a lot of the focus around mobility is urban, has a huge focus on urban mobility. So this gives a bit of perspective from a rural setting. So I'm just going to share my screen now and run through my presentation. So Raleigh UK, I'm sure hopefully you would have all heard of Raleigh UK. We've been around for about 130 years. We've got a name synonymous with the city of Nottingham. We're still based in Nottingham, actually. Although none of our bikes are manufactured here, most of them are European or Far East now. And it's changed dramatically, although one thing that's been really stable is the brand awareness. So Raleigh has a similar awareness, brand awareness to the likes of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So it really is a household name and a brand that can be trusted. I think that's why the electric bikes have been so successful, and subsequently the electric cargo bikes. And obviously couldn't mention the Raleigh name without mentioning the iconic chopper. So, you know, lots of heritage models that you've seen over the last few years are being recreated by us and have been really successful. So I just thought I'd put that in there for a bit of fun. So electric bikes, just to touch on electric bikes really. Fundamentally, they're a versatile bicycle with the addition of a motor and battery system. They come in all shapes and sizes. Predominantly, Raleigh as a brand partners with Bosch systems. So they have Bosch motors and batteries which are integrated in the frame, or the frame itself is designed around the system. So by law, electrically assisted pedal cycles is the actual term, are limited to 15.5 miles an hour. And this is very much to keep them within that bicycle category. You can pedal beyond that speed, but you won't get any more assistance beyond that. And some of the questions we get asked often are you know, things around range and limit and charging, etc. So typically, one of our Raleigh electric bikes would do around 80 miles on a single charge, and the batteries can be charged on or off the bikes. They take around 3 to 4 hours to charge, depending on how little charge there is in the battery, and they're lockable. So obviously the batteries being one of the most expensive parts of the bike, security is key. And actually just touching on security, we've found that is one of the biggest barriers, and we've got a few questions coming up later that touches on electric bikes and cargo bikes. So I'll throw some questions your way a bit later, and hopefully we can get some feedback and a really nice discussion going. The key advantage of an electric bike over a traditional bike is that they break down barriers where perhaps cycling was not accessible to certain people. Be it, you know, accessibility from a physical perspective or an age perspective. It really breaks down any barriers that people have to getting active. And often we found that electric bikes are a gateway to going back to a normal bike, where obviously it's all under your own steam. And just to touch on it, and this is a running theme throughout the presentation, that electric bikes are 10 times more sustainable than an equivalent vehicle. And that's in terms of the cost of running them. So your servicing, your repairs, your insurance, all that sort of thing, maintenance and upkeep, as well as, you know, the fact that the only thing that's powering them, apart from a little bit of electricity, is your own steam. So they're 10 times more sustainable in terms of the energy that's used to charge and use the product, as well as the fuel, which is the food that you eat. So again, a running theme. And again, this is my last slide on electric bikes. I really like this because it highlights how diverse the use of electric bikes can be. And this really shows how electric bikes can be used in rural environments. So in a pilot, a Honiton surgery, which is in the West Country, they've taken on board two electric bikes. They've been really well received. Initially, the thought process was for them just to be used for the GPs to do home visits. But as you can see there, they've been used for a much wider use case. And actually, this is going to extend further. And one of the points in the gear change document that was announced last year was how activity, as in walking, cycling, can be prescribed. And so the two bikes that were used by the GP surgery in Honiton were predominantly for healthcare visits to homes. They were used by the mental health team as a prescription to get people active. And we all know the benefits of being active. By practice staff to commute to and from work, and also really short journeys that perhaps would have been done by bike. I think we're all a little bit guilty of perhaps jumping in the car when we could have gone on a bike. You know, I think there's a stat that's around 60% of the journeys in the UK are less than 3 miles. It's enormous. And yes, we can talk about infrastructure. Yes, we can talk about parking. But I think fundamentally, we almost need to get to this critical mass where, you know, there is so many people cycling, whether it's cargo bikes or e-bikes, that there is a real need for the infrastructure in the same way that there is for the motor vehicles and commercial vehicles that are on the road. So really nice quote there. 60% of GP visits are now being undertaken by e-bike, which is amazing. You know, this is a really good use case for electric bikes. So the only thing it doesn't mention there is actually how much commercial savings that are made. And obviously 100 miles in a car is a significant number. So the only thing that I would add to this slide is there's a lot of monetary value to be added to this that would be saved by use of electric bikes. And engagement as well. You know, if you see a doctor on a bike versus in a car, whether you'd want to speak to them or vice versa, I think it just makes them more accessible to people generally. So enough about electric bikes. You know, going back to what this session was about, which is cargo bikes. So cargo bikes are a versatile means of transporting people or items, and there's some really good examples of pictures there. So the two open case bikes or open box bikes are the two Stride models, which are designed to carry anything from people to things. And the one bottom left is an example of the enclosed business focused bikes that we offer. And again, very much like the electric bikes, they've got a motor and a battery system, which provides assistance up to 15.5 miles an hour. They are very much categorized as a bicycle. So all of our cargo bikes are less than a meter wide, so they can go down the cycle paths, they can go down narrow lanes, they can go through your anti-terrorist barriers in London, for example. You know, there's obviously varying uses for the cargo bikes, and it really just highlights the difference in size and capability of them. So again, we'll talk about the benefits of cargo bikes shortly. But the big top level ones are they are cost effective. So 10 times 90% reduction in emission, 10 times more efficient in terms of running costs. The great thing about the business bikes is they open up talent pool, so you don't necessarily have to have a license to ride a cargo bike. So the diversity of workforces for business it really opens up opportunities for younger people, older people, people who don't drive, for example, and they're very much focused on the business bikes are very much focused on transporting smaller items and are most efficient in urban areas. And there's lots of research out there. I'd urge you to go and have a look at PedalMe's website. They're a courier in London that carry pretty much anything. And they've done some research that's found out they are around 60% more efficient in terms of urban deliveries. This is purely to highlight how cost effective the cargo bikes can be. And again, this is being recorded, so if you don't digest all this information, or alternatively, feel free to reach out to me. Really passionate about urban mobility and logistics and cargo bikes generally. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out afterwards. But a brilliant comparison chart to show the difference between a normal cargo bike, the increase in costs in terms of charging an e-cargo bike or trike, and then compared with a small electric van or diesel van. So like I said, massively more efficient, enormous reduction in emissions, and those 10% of emissions are attributed to the production and the running costs, i.e. charging the batteries and the fuel that the rider consumes, food. And also they're more cost effective in terms of parking fines. You know, it's abundantly clear that active travel is high on the agenda at the minute. Part of that is the likes of London with its ultra low emission zone extending quite significantly. You've got the likes of Birmingham, Nottingham, Bristol, Bath, all introducing clean air zones. So there's going to be enormous increase in costs to businesses and individuals wanting to travel into city centres. Parking is, you know, enormously expensive. All of these things add up and make a cargo bike more effective. And just to add a kind of a counterbalance to that, the downside to cargo bikes obviously are that it rains in the UK. So, you know, the well-being of the user is a challenge. So you've really got to wear the right clothing, you know, training as well. They're not like a normal bicycle. We've found that it's really important for operatives of cargo bikes to be trained properly. And again, just to highlight PedalMe, great company, they offer training. I think for us, cargo bikes offer a real solution to urban logistics, but it's got to be done in a sustainable way. So what I wanted to do was highlight a case study, which was Energy Saving Trust funded. So 13 cargo bikes and 7 cargo trikes went into Birmingham City Council, lots of different organisations across the city, including the Active Wellbeing Society, who do some amazing things, one of which is food bank deliveries at Christmas. So I just thought I'd share that as a really good news story. So amazing what they're doing, but to do it, delivering it by a cargo bike is an even better story. So they're also used for things like minor repairs of the free bike scheme bikes across Birmingham City, all sorts of different use cases. But yeah, that's a great example of DFT, Energy Saving Trust funded bikes that are being used across different businesses, organisations across Birmingham. And again, you can see there, Brum Breeze is a big campaign that's happening across Birmingham to reduce the emissions, CO2 emissions, and that's not unique to Birmingham. There's lots of cities across the UK that are adopting cargo bikes as an alternative means of transport. So again, just to touch on a couple of schemes that have been really successful. So Leeds, Sheffield, Birmingham, Nottingham. There's lots of cities that are adopting cargo bikes to effectively loan to small businesses at a very low cost to see if cargo bikes can be an alternative means of transport. And the idea in these types of pilots is that cargo bikes are very new. They're not cheap. You know, we're fully aware that, you know, for a business to invest £5,000 or £6,000 into a cargo bike, which is a completely new concept, is quite substantial. And so there are lots of things happening to mitigate this. And the try before you buy and share schemes are a really, really important way of getting cargo bikes, well, first and foremost, more well known, but also letting people try them, because that is absolutely been fundamental to the growth in cargo bikes. So, like I said, lots of cities in the UK doing it. Leeds is a great example. They have a web page dedicated to it. You can, if you Google Leeds e-cargo bike trial, you can go on, make an application, and use a bike for, I think it's 3 months. So really get a feel of what the bikes can do and how capable they are. So like I said, local authority funded and procured projects seem to be working really well. Another avenue is growing. It's relatively new. There's a pilot about to launch in London, but with Beryl bikes, but public access, cargo share could be really important. Again, it's about getting the tools like the cargo bikes to organizations really at a really low cost or low risk, to get people trying it to see if it could be an alternative. And, you know, with all the smart tech that the likes of Beryl have, it would be a great way of getting all the data back, learning from it, seeing how they work, looking at route planning. That will help with infrastructure. It will help with low traffic neighborhoods. And of course, ultimately, it helps the businesses. Because one thing we haven't touched on, despite it being a rubbish time because of COVID, there are lots of businesses out there struggling that are looking for low cost, more sustainable alternatives. So again, that could be a great one. And again, just to highlight some of the businesses that we've worked with. So Raleigh directly offer trials. It's no cost, no obligation to purchase. Again, all with the view to helping organizations understand what cargo bikes are and what they do. And my favorite one there, far right, is the ARC Centre in Islington. We loaned them a bike. There's only 40% car ownership in Islington. And there's some really interesting things going on. So obviously lots of low traffic neighborhoods. David Shannon from the council there is real advocate for bikes. Previously, a journey with the commercial vehicle from the ARC Centre in Islington to the 200 families that they delivered to would take anywhere between 3 and 4 hours. The first drop, the most notable thing for me was the first drop to the first house for Damien there, pictured on the right, was about 40 minutes in a van because of the low traffic neighborhoods. There's obviously costs associated with that, insurance, tax, MOT on the vehicle. And they used a cargo bike and were totally blown away. So not only did it speed up deliveries, but it allowed them to do them in a more efficient way, such that they could then go to the supermarkets, the bakeries, and the shops that would donate food to them, collect the excess, and then bring it back to the ARC Centre for it to be sorted in a much quicker way. So it was a real success story and something that we shout about now. Again, just some examples of businesses, organizations, and people that have been using the cargo bikes to showcase their capacity. So really, just to kind of wrap up, there's just 2 things I want to say really, is that with the gear change announcement and funding available, cargo bikes can offer a real opportunity for people and organizations to move differently. They work in urban and rural settings, although they are more efficient in urban environments. You know, London's only got a 9-mile-an-hour average speed limit or average speed due to the congestion and traffic. All the associated costs, there's lots of benefits to them. And, you know, like I said, the gear change document is really going to change things and enable people to cycle in a more sustainable, more secure way. I know infrastructure has been touched on a number of times, and it's been a big focus of today. So it'd be really interesting to see how infrastructure changes. And really, I won't steal Rachel's thunder. Hopefully we've got Rachel here from the Energy Saving Trust to touch on the funding available, but I just wanted to give you an example there. So the Pro bike, which is our 2-wheel business bike, is our kind of flagship model, been the most popular this year. It retails at £4,950. And with the Energy Saving Trust grant, you save nearly £2,000. So organisations, there's never been a better time to capitalise on the funding that's available. So hopefully that is me, and I'll stop sharing my screen and hopefully hand over to Rachel who'll tell you a bit more.
Wonderful, thank you, Ed. I'll just bring up my slides for you there. Wonderful, thanks. Oops. Sorry, just like technical difficulties, but hopefully that's still up and running. So hi everyone, I'm Rachel Swiatek. I'm a program manager at Energy Saving Trust, and as I said today, I'll give you a quick overview of the eCargo Bike grant fund that launched at the end of July. So £400,000 has been made available by Department for Transport to support and encourage businesses purchasing eCargo bikes. Energy Saving Trust administer this grant on behalf of the Department for Transport. So the grant fund covers up to 40% total cost of an eCargo bike, up to the value of £2,500 for two-wheel models and £4,500 for three-wheel models. Applications will be capped at 5 eCargo bikes per organisation, although larger applications will be considered on a case-by-case basis. There is also an option of a joint high street application. So small businesses have the option to pool their resources into one application as well. So the scheme is open to organisations, not individuals, and those operating in England. So that limited companies, sole traders, partnerships, charities, and not-for-profit organisations are all eligible to apply. Local authorities can apply, provided that the bikes will be used for their own use. So applications are now open and close on the 14th of December. For more information on the grant fund and to complete the online application form, please see our webpage, links on the screen there, and where there is also an info pack, eligibility criteria, and that infographic of the application journey, which you can see on screen now, but I will be extremely impressed if you can actually read. You can also get in touch with us on the email address on screen with any questions. So what I would like you to do, please, is to share this information about the eCargo Bike Grant Fund with your business networks to help support the transition to zero emissions in your area. So an easy way for you to do this would be to share the post on our social channels. Our handles are on screen there, and we do have some social media post copy that you can use for your own posts too. So please do get in touch if you'd like this. So happy to answer any questions in the chat, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. So we've got some polling questions, and I'll start to unhide these now. So feel free to answer those, or if you've got any questions now or later, feel free to reach out. Cargo bikes, electric bikes, we'd be happy to support. We've done a lot of work with local authorities in conjunction with the Energy Saving Trust and Department for Transport. It's a really beneficial scheme, and you know, funding really helps businesses and organisations reduce those barriers. So like I said, there's some polling questions there. I'm just going to go through the Q&A. I have replied to some of them. Just to touch on a couple of questions there. Storage, absolutely. Yeah, storage and security. Actually, the projects that we've worked on, they have been big barriers to delivering bikes. So we've found that the best way to secure a bike is firstly have it tracked. And there's a number of trackers out on the market. We've found that the Power Unity tracker, which was developed in Austria, is the best. It fits directly into the e-bike system, so you don't have to faff about with charging batteries. It doesn't invalidate the warranty because there's no issues with cutting wires, etc. So it fits directly into the system. It's manufacturer approved, really easy to fit, and often I know us, when we're working on our fleet bikes commercially, we can build those in as part of a package. So firstly would be tracking, second would be a decent lock, in particular just making sure that it's either gold or platinum sold secure, so at insurance level, insurance grade standards. There is built-in locks on all of our products, and many of the cargo bikes already have a wheel lock. And then the last thing with regards to storage, definitely a challenge. They can be kept outside, but again, it's high likelihood that they'll be stolen, even given their size. We have worked with a number of businesses. Cycle Hoops, Nottingham City Council are working with a company called Lockham, who offer mobility solutions for storing bikes, e-bikes, e-cargo bikes. There are lots of businesses out there that are now adapting their product offering to store cargo bikes, but generally speaking, you're right. I think there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that cargo bikes are adopted by the masses. For example, there's not currently storage for cargo bikes at Tesco's local to us, but there is storage for bicycles. So it's just, as they grow, I think the market will grow with it, and definitely adapt. But in terms of security, definitely tracking, a decent lock, and insurance. We've found that Laka insurance are pretty good. Laka, Laka. Laka not only insure the product, but also the liability for delivery businesses as well. So again, a bit of a challenge because it's new. Rachel, there's a question for you there from Tracy Vickers. I'm not sure if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is whether local authorities are eligible for the fund. Yes, the local authorities are eligible to apply, provided the e-cargo bikes will be for their own internal use, so not for a third-party business. If businesses want to use the bike, they should apply directly themselves.
Thanks. Just running through. There's a really interesting question there about the use of e-cargo services within towns and cities versus rural environments. Again, we've definitely touched on it. The cargo bikes are really efficient in urban areas purely by virtue of where they can travel. Like I said, having said that, the use of cargo bikes can be pretty broad, and actually the amount that they can carry in terms of people or product is changing as well. We firmly believe that they should be kept below 1 meter and very much remain an electric assist pedal cycle, so not enhance the capability of the motor or system. But having said that, they still have a range of sort of 40 to 50 miles on a single charge. They can still carry up to sort of 100 kilos, and in some cases 1,500 litres of capacity. So while they might not be as efficient in rural settings, I definitely think there will be demand for them. Like I said, cargo bikes is very new, so it's changing regularly. Thomas, there's a question about the spec of cycle parking. Really interesting one. We've found that most of the cycle parking that have been adopted by local authorities, so the likes of Nottingham, some boroughs of London, Hackney Borough, taking them for example, They don't actually differ too much from standard cycle shelters, other than they tend to be a lot bigger. So the capacity of them a lot longer. Most cargo bikes will fit into a standard, the standard shelters that you see across London. Most cargo bikes would fit into those. So it's about making provision for them as and where it's needed. Brilliant. Well, it's 2 o'clock. Like I said, thanks for your time. Really appreciate you coming on and joining the seminar. Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate your input. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out directly. You can either message me on here, or I am on LinkedIn, so please feel free to add me on LinkedIn, and be more than happy to chat cargo bikes. Thank you.
Thank you.